Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today's video should be fun, but before I get into it, let me say I've got a shout out coming up at the end of the video. Please stay tuned for that. But this is something that I've been discussing amongst my friends on social media Saturday night after all the games ended, and then yesterday with some co-workers, and that is what the playoff poll is going to look like tomorrow night when it comes out. And the reason is Alabama looked like an absolute complete doo-doo sandwich on Saturday when they played Auburn. So they should fall to number 4. But everybody knows by now, it's blatantly obvious that the playoff committee and the playoff poll favors Alabama. If there was ever a year when a 2-loss team makes the playoffs, it's this year. If there's ever a 2-loss team that makes the playoffs just because of who they are, then we know it's Alabama. So even though Bama went into the weekend number 3 and they didn't do anything deserving to move up, I think with Ohio State losing, they will, because if they go into the Georgia game and they're number 4 and they lose, no matter how close the game is, no matter how close the final outcome of the score is, they're going to fall at least one spot. So you can't go in at 4 and lose and stay at 4. Even when they lost A&M, they only dropped 4 spots, but they still fell. So you're not going to lose to Georgia and not fall at all. So I think they're going to be number 2 when the poll comes out tomorrow night. So that way, if they lose to Georgia, say they lose by a touchdown or maybe 10 points, which, by the way, if I'm a Georgia fan and the game's that close, I'd be infuriated because Alabama is not that good this year. But let's say they lose to Georgia by a touchdown or by 10 points. Well, if you're number 2 or number 3 and you lose to Georgia basically on one possession game, then they can look at it and say, well, they lost to the best team in the country by a touchdown, so we'll drop them one spot and they'll still get in. But I don't think the game is going to be that close. I've been saying it for 3 weeks now, and I'll keep saying it. Georgia should beat them by at least 2 touchdowns. At least 2 touchdowns. And that's with a couple of cheap Alabama touchdowns late in the game. The game should not be that close. Alabama's played one good game all year long, and that was the very first game of the season when they played Miami. They have played like absolute dog doo-doo every week since that game. So they have no business hanging with Georgia. But my prediction is it's going to be Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and Cincinnati when the poll comes out tomorrow night. Now, if Bama beats Georgia, then it don't matter. They're getting in. If Michigan loses and Cincinnati loses and Oklahoma State loses, then we all know they're getting in. Notre Dame does not have a championship game because they don't play in a conference. So let's say Michigan loses and Cincinnati loses, then we know Notre Dame is getting in. So then you have Georgia and you have Notre Dame, and then you would have a 2-loss Bama team if they lose to Georgia. Plus you would have a 2-loss Iowa team, but Iowa's going to be around 15th when the poll comes out tomorrow night, so they have no chance, so count them out. And even though Baylor would win the Big 12 with 2 losses, the Big 12 gets no respect, so they're not getting in. So you would also have a 2-loss Oregon team if they can win their title game against Utah, who just beat the dog snot out of them a couple of weeks ago. And you would also have a 2-loss Ohio State team who's accomplished nothing as far as they didn't win, their half of the Big Ten. They didn't win their title game. Nothing. So if all those teams lose, then obviously Bama would get in, even though they would have 2 losses because they're Bama and everybody else does too. But I think if Michigan wins and Cincinnati wins and Oklahoma State wins, I don't care how close Bama plays Georgia. They have no business making the playoffs. But I think the committee is going to put them at number 2 and then hope that either Michigan loses or Oklahoma State loses, and then that way Bama can still get in. So my prediction when the poll comes out tomorrow night, even though Bama was 3 going into the weekend, for a few minutes I thought maybe they'll put Michigan at number 2, but I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to put Michigan over Bama. So I think Bama will go back up to 2, and Michigan will go to 3, and Cincinnati will stay at 4. So that's my prediction. Let me know what you think. Of course, we'll find out tomorrow night at 7 o'clock when the new playoff poll comes out. And Lincoln Riley, in case you have not heard, has left Oklahoma to go to USC. He is the first Oklahoma coach since 1946 that's actually left the program to go to another program. Oklahoma has always been a top-tier program in college football. My grandpa, who recently died, God rest his soul, grew up in Oklahoma, and he said he can recall growing up in the late 40s, early 50s, Oklahoma was good at football. They've always been good. They had a stretch in the 90s before Bob Stoops came where they actually were terrible. But outside of that decade, they've always been a top 10 team. So that's always a place coaches want to go, not a place coaches want to leave. So it'll be interesting to see who they hire. But ever since 1946, they've either fired their coach, he's retired, or they had one who actually died on the job. So it is strange to see somebody leave. I personally think the reason he's leaving, and this is just my opinion, I don't know this, it's because Bob Stoops had them a top 10 team every year. Bob Stoops had 1 year where he won 7 games. Outside of that, they won 9, 10, 11 games every single year. So as soon as Lincoln Riley took the job, everybody was saying, well, that's an easy job. He's taking over a program that's already winning. And even though he's 5 years in, he's still not getting the credit that he thinks he deserves because he feels like he's keeping them good, whereas everybody else look at it as, well, it's Oklahoma. Anybody can win there. And, of course, we know USC is an absolute dumpster fire. So I think he's going to go to USC with the hopes of turning them around to prove to people that he is a good coach. And he wasn't just winning because it's Oklahoma. He was winning because he's a good coach. But that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm 100% wrong, but that's why I personally think he left. But I wish him well, but I think USC has no hope, and I think they're a dumpster fire. But after the coaching season carousel comes to an end, I'll have to come back on here one day and do a video about all the new coaches at all the new places because it's just underway. It probably won't end until after the actual playoffs come to an end in early January. My shout out today goes out to my man Alvin, who subscribed to the channel yesterday. He lives in the upstate of South Carolina, and he said he's a Clemson fan, all in, all the time. So Alvin, thank you so much for subscribing. Welcome aboard. Tell your friends, tell your family. And now if you decide to comment on the comment section of any video at any time, you will be eligible for our 1,000 subscriber giveaway we'll be having when we get to 1,000 subscribers. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Did you hear that Steve Harvey and his wife had a big fight? It was a family feud. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.